All right, hi everyone. Welcome to today's event. We're going to get going. Let me just go through. I'm Janelle Semecki, the Awards Program Administrator with the Lemelson-MIT program. So my primary role is managing our student prize. I will also be your moderator for today's event. And before we get into our panelists and introducing our panelists, I just wanted to quickly run through the agenda, a few housekeeping items. So basically, in a little bit, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves, our four panelists we have here today. And then I'll have some moderated questions with them. And towards the end of the hour, I'll open it up to the audience for questions. And then around 4:30 Eastern, we're going to randomly split all of you into breakout sessions of about 5 to 6 people each. And so each of our four panelists are going to lead a breakout. And then we also have some of our 2021 Student Prize winners on hand to help out with the breakouts as well, depending on how many rooms we need. Almost all of our 2021 Student Prize winners are here today, in addition to the alumni panelists. So I just wanted to remind the audience, if you can please, during this panel session, before the Q&A, the audience Q&A, if you can please just keep yourselves muted. And then when I open it up to the audience Q&A, you can either use the raise your hand function and I can call on you to unmute yourself, or you're welcome to put questions in the chat as well. And another reminder that this first hour is going to be recorded, although the breakout sessions will not be recorded. And we also have captioning available if anyone needs it for the first hour. And then for the breakout session, we do have one breakout room with captioning. So please just, if you do need captioning for a breakout room, please send a chat to my colleague, Laura Lopez, and she will be sure to accommodate you with that. So before I get into the panel, I think most of you here today are familiar with our Student Prize. Just as a reminder, it's a national competition open around the country to undergrad teams and grad students. And we award prizes each year for students who have inventions, technology-based inventions in each of our 4 prize categories. So we have Cure It, which is for inventions related to healthcare, Eat It for food, water, and agriculture, Move It for transportation and mobility, and Use It for consumer devices and products. And so I'm happy today to have 4 past Student Prize alumni with us to tell you a little bit about themselves. And then we'll get into some questions with them. And you'll see we have a range across a few different years. And then we have all 4 categories represented, and also a mix of past undergrad team winners and grad student winners. So with us today is Daniela Blanco, our 2020 Use It graduate winner from last year. We have Catherine Jin, our 2016 Cure It undergrad team winner. Matthew Rhode, our 2017 Eat It undergrad team winner, and Josh Siegel, our 2015 Move It graduate winner. So I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over to them. So if I'm going to start with Daniela, we'll just go in alpha order by last name. If you could, each of you just spend a couple of minutes kind of introducing yourselves, talk about how you got to where you are today. And give us a little bit, talk about your inventive work that you've done. And also, if you can, mention whether you've patented your work or if you've licensed any technology, or if you're in the process of doing so. So to kick things off, I will turn it over to Daniela, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela Blanco. I am the co-founder and CTO of Synthetic. I have a PhD in chemical engineering, and I actually have had quite a changing inventive journey, I guess. I started developing solar-powered routes to make chemicals, and then I moved all the way to what I do today, which is develop machine learning platforms to accelerate innovation and sustainability within the chemical industry. I do have patents throughout, my technical journey. I have patents all the way from the reactor designs to composition of reaction mixtures, and now we're actually preparing some provisional patents more on the coding side, like the algorithms for the machine learning that we are developing. I won the Lemelson Award in 2020, as Janelle said, and it has been great. For us, it was a lot of support, a lot of validation and credibility that gave to our technology and our company. Thanks to all of that, we have been incredibly lucky to also get a lot of awards and recognition from Forbes, MIT, like Technology Review, even from like National Geographic featuring our story. So very grateful, very excited to be here speaking with all of you today.
Great, thanks so much, Daniela. And so next up, we'll turn it over to Catherine Jin, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Catherine Jin, and I was a member of the team that won the 2016 Curate for the undergrad division of Lemelson-MIT. I'm currently the co-founder and the CTO for Kinos, which is a biotech company located in Brooklyn trying to improve infectious disease decontamination. The product that we won Lemelson-MIT for was called Highlight Powder, which is an additive you add to your bulk bleach disinfectants at point of use to colorize the solution so you can see exactly what you're disinfecting. And then the color fades away to indicate to you when decontamination is done. I started this project back in 2014 at the height of the Ebola crisis when I was still an undergrad at school. And this was as part of a hackathon. So the project started rolling from there. We got some experience, we got some opportunities to actually go to West Africa and work there during the Ebola crisis. So we were in Liberia and Guinea, and then we won a grant from USAID Fighting Ebola Grand Challenge. And ever since then, you know, when we graduated, I've been working on this team full time, and the team has now grown from the 3 original co-founders to around 15 people. And we've also expanded the product portfolio to not only apply to pandemics and low resource settings, but also to all healthcare settings and scenarios. So yeah, very excited to talk about my experience with Lemelson-MIT today.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, next we'll go to Matthew, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Rhode. I'm from Iowa City, Iowa. I am the winner of the EDIT 2017 Student Prize. The invention that we were awarded for was an invention called SmartGuard, which uses voice recognition to identify when a little baby piglet is being rolled on by its mother during the birthing process. And then we were able to identify that, triangulate its position, and alert the mom to stand up safely. And so we started this back in 2015. It really stemmed to an entire lifelong journey of being a farmer growing up and then moving into the healthcare world in the hospitals and nursing homes as a medication aid. And in that environment, I saw how nurses could multitask and provide a higher quality care with all the technologies they had, and thought that it'd be pretty great to be able to bring some of that back to agriculture. In our journey, we were well supported by many groups, MIT, Microsoft, Under Armour, and many others that gave us a few $100,000 in grants that allowed us to go out there and turn an idea into reality. We've been able to patent the technology and move forward to commercialization, where we've been able to help pork producers in the US and Canada. And it's even stemmed to a software product that helps us enable other technology providers to more effectively bring their innovations to the swine industry and measure success. So I'm very excited to talk with you all today. And I guess congratulations to everybody who is here.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we're excited to have all of you with us too. So, and then last, I will just turn it over to Josh to please introduce himself.
Thanks. I'm Josh Siegel. I was a winner of the 2015 Graduate Drive It Prize for my work building an open source connected car platform, so software, hardware, and applications for that. Today, I'm an assistant professor of computer science and engineering at Michigan State University, where I run the Deep Technology Lab. And the Deep Tech Lab is really about building technology that was impossible yesterday, that's barely feasible today, and tomorrow that has the potential to pervasively and invisibly change the world. We do work across disciplines so that we can solve real and pressing problems faced by actual humans, and then help find those solutions a home in the market so that they can be adopted and go out and change people's lives for the better. That includes working in areas like cybersecurity, self-driving, Industry 4.0, and artificial intelligence. We're about 10 students right now in the group. Prior to starting at Michigan State, I started a few companies in the automotive space. One was data-driven, that was vibroacoustic diagnostics for cars. So if you've ever used Shazam on your phone to identify a song on the radio, I do something very similar with cars, and I listen to them and can tell you when to change the oil, when to change the air filter, when you might have a misfire in your engine. the work that I did for the Graduate Drive It Prize was another company that was called Carnot. And prior to that, I had a company building inertial navigation, which is like GPS, but it runs indoors. Most of those companies and most of that research has patents behind it. I think I've got 6 patents now and a couple more pending. And I got my start inventing by restoring cars, taking them apart, putting them back together, building a library of how things work and understanding how things don't work so that we can create new solutions that better address needs that were not met by those earlier solutions. And I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you all for having me, and I'm excited to share my experience with you.
Great. Well, thanks so much to all of you for your introductions. And Josh, you reminded me, I actually put your prize wrong on the slide because I forgot it used to be called Drive It, and we changed it to Move It a few years ago. So he is actually a Drive It winner. But anyway, I wanted to turn it over to a few questions I had prepared for all of you. I think this first question is actually for all of you, so maybe we'll just go in the same order again, starting with Daniela. And if you could, so if there's any way, if you could think of one person, or it could be 2 if you can't think of one, who has been most influential to you or most supportive to you in your development as an inventor, and why, please. We'll start with Daniela.
Of course. So I think that for me, the easy answer on this thing is, of course, like the most supportive people in my life are my family for sure. But I would say that from the inventive side, you know, and my career, I think that my PhD advisor was definitely instrumental. Like the fact that he was open to let me, you know, adapt and change my thesis so that we could actually tackle the technologies that I wanted to develop, and that, you know, led to all of these patents. That was something huge. Like I know that sometimes in science, you know, maybe especially in a PhD, like you have the difference of, do I want to just publish what will get the most citations, or do I want to maybe develop a different technology that I'm very interested in and that could be better for industry, but maybe it's not huge in the academic world right now. And my advisor really allowed me to choose what I wanted, and that's why I focus maybe less on the academic, the inventive journey for the company that we have today. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's great. Thank you. And then I have so same question for Catherine too.
I always find this question a little bit difficult for me to answer. When I first started college, I did not think I was going to go into STEM. I was really interested in literature and maybe majoring in human rights. And so when I started taking computer science and biology classes, it was mostly just to expand my horizons, not necessarily to make science and technology my focus for the future. But I found myself really enjoying the classes. And when the hackathon for the Ebola crisis came around at my school, it seemed like a no-brainer to do it because I really wanted to make an impact and figure out how I could use all the learnings I had learned at school to actually help someone. So in that sense, I wasn't really like the kind of person that was looking for a mentor in this space or looking for someone to guide me along in this space, but I would say probably the people that really assisted me in becoming the inventor that I am today were my 2 co-founders, Jason and Kevin. I think starting a team together and working on a project together, the most important decision comes from who are you choosing to work on it with. And, you know, those 2 were both amazing partners, and both of those 2 came into school knowing they wanted to do science. So they also had a slightly longer background doing research than I did. So initially following their guidance as well as our PI's guidance on how to conduct experiments rigorously, how to design experiments, etc., that helped a lot. And I think more than all of that was my co-founder's confidence in me. I think at many points on my journey, I didn't think that I should be the CTO, or I didn't think that I had enough technical experience to know how to design this product. And I don't think I have an amazing amount of technical experience now, but I think what I learned from my 2 co-founders and learned from running Kinos is that if you care about something enough and you're passionate about something enough, you can learn it. And there are a lot of resources out there for you. And from that, you know, I've met amazing scientists. I've met, you know, one of our advisors is the previous head of R&D at Clorox, which is, one of the biggest bleach manufacturers in the world and very related to the field that we're in. So I think having that confidence from my team from the very beginning to support my technical work, and also to support, me in my capacity to learn and grow, really enabled me to feel a lot more confident as a scientist. So maybe not necessarily a mentor, but I really appreciate my two co-founders.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I'll probably touch on that more and forming a team a little bit later too, because I think that's really interesting to hear that they've been most supportive to you, and that's really good. So next, I'll turn it over to Matthew too, if you could tell us who's been most supportive to you.
Yeah, so most supportive to me would probably be my family and I guess local community. Innovation isn't necessarily something I was looking for. I think growing up in agriculture, one thing that you're always expected to do is figure something out, figure out a way, find a way, solve a problem. And so when I was going to school, I was always in between whether or not I wanted to go business or healthcare, because I grew up in agriculture and I kind of wanted to try something different. But I think the roots that I gained growing up around what my family had taught me and my community had taught me around a work ethic, and if there is a problem, even if it's just duct tape, find a way to solve it. And so when I did get into an environment when it was much more technical, I wasn't necessarily the most prepared, but I did have an I can figure it out kind of mentality. And then I reached out to friends and to colleagues, and I asked them to share together each other's expertise and knowledge to go solve a problem. And so I know my answer is almost more cookie cutter and when I answering with family, but for me, that's what it was, just kind of how I grew up.
No, that's great. I mean, supports come from all over. So it actually is great to hear this big range of where it comes from. So I will turn it to Josh to see if he has anything different or similar.
Yeah, I think similar and kind of pulling from everyone else's responses here. I think the mentor and support network that one has really changes as someone grows as a person, right? And you need different things at different life stages. I think foundationally, it's my parents who created opportunities for me to learn theory and practice, whether by getting me textbooks that were too age advanced or helping me pull things out of a dumpster I could take apart and figure out how they worked and put back together. I was very privileged to go to a school system where I had teachers who taught me to appreciate art and beauty and craftsmanship in addition to theory and practice of building things. And I think that's one of the things that I credit with being able to solve problems creatively, thinking about them as a craftsperson might rather than just as an engineer might. But really kind of the pinnacle mentor that I've had thus far has been my PhD advisor, Sanjay Sarma, who's still at MIT. And what he taught me was that it's really important to be faithful to a problem, not a discipline. My background was mechanical engineering. I came into college wanting to be a doctor. I went into mechanical engineering. Now I'm in computer science and I also teach electrical engineering. And it's really important to be able to chase the things that you're passionate about, but also not to put up invisible walls where there aren't any, because we like to do cool things. We like to learn things that are interesting and solve real problems. The other thing that he taught me was that it's imperative that you envision a future that hasn't yet been created, but that you can play a role in sculpting. And I think one thing that everyone in this virtual room has in common is we see an opportunity, right? And we go for it. And that opportunity is something that has never been done before. So Sanjay taught me to think that way. And now I'm trying to emulate him as I grow my own research lab to create opportunities like that for others.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing this. This is really helpful to hear the wide range of help that you've gotten along the way. And I think, so kind of turning the tables from that, this is great to hear about all this support. And then, but I'm gonna maybe I'll start with Matthew. Could you kind of on the flip side, could you explain if there's been any specific barriers or challenges or discouragements that you faced along your invention pathway? And if so, are there any resources or supports that you wish you had available to overcome these challenges? Or kind of related to this, or is there anything you wish you could have done differently? It's kind of
so ours is actually kind of interesting. When you grow up in school, right, like you have a lot of respect for your teachers and your professors, and those individuals are the ones who are who are experts in specific domains. And those are the people you're typically working with. Well, when we started out, the people that were our biggest adversaries were professors. There was a lot of people out there who said, this can't be done. This isn't going to be possible. You can't do it. Nope, we've already looked at this. There's no way. And so just a whole lot of naysayers in that environment. I don't know if that's because they have dedicated their life to a particular topic and no, I guarantee you can't do this. Well, we had a lot of people who are on the other flip side, so the business side, people who are CEOs or innovators that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years. And they were the ones that came forward and said, nobody's ever tried this. Nobody's ever done it. You would be very wise to pursue this. I mean, keep going for it. You can do it. And there was very positive messaging behind that. And I don't want to blanket it between those two groups, but for us, that was the scenario. And I would just say, don't just listen to one population or type of group of people, right? Like, get feedback from all over the place. Don't just listen to family. Don't just listen to teachers. Don't just listen to business owners. Try to get a really good, broad sense of everyone's perspectives. Really do good customer discovery, and that's going to give you a good sense of where you should go. And so I think leaning on different groups and finding a wider variety of mentors and advisors along the way helped us not become so focused on one group's feedback. But if I could have done anything differently, I probably would have done better customer discovery. I still think we did an okay job, but going and pivoting through COVID on another project we did, I really felt the power of really great conversations with people in our industry. And I wish I would have done a better job the first time around. Probably could have succeeded faster with less headaches if I would have asked better questions and gotten more perspectives before we started. I would also say that as an innovator or as a business owner in the same sense, sometimes you're forced to go fast, and going fast can cause you to trip and fall. And you can just get into this never ending somersault downfall of falling down a hill if you keep tripping and falling, keep tripping and falling. So I would say stand up for what you believe in the sense of how long you think something's going to take for you to do it the right way. Don't rush it. Do it the right way and figure out how you can find the resources and the team members and the mentors necessary to help you do it in the way that you feel is best, as opposed to letting those outside forces cause you to go faster than what you'd like. I think there was a great one, a great quote by Mario Andretti. He said, if everything feels like it's under control, you're not going fast enough. And I feel like in this, that's completely the truth. You need to go fast, but at the same time, you need to keep the reins on that and not fall out of control. So that's my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. No, that's some great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And maybe I'll ask the same question, maybe Daniela, if you could also respond, if you've had any barriers you faced along the way or challenges or anything supports you wish you had or anything you wish you could have changed.
Yes, so I had challenges definitely from different areas, all the way from, my co-founder and I, we are 2 chemical engineers, we're also 2 girls. So, from the moment that we started pitching our idea, the feedback that we kept getting from judges and different mentors was the same, this is a huge industry, it's too traditional, you are 2 girls, you are too young, you don't know what you're saying, this problem is too big, you're never going to get anywhere. And then, of course, that comes followed by a lot of different advice. So it's incredibly overwhelming. It's a little bit what Matthew was saying, like you just get so much information, people who kept saying like, don't patent it because you'll never be able to enforce it. And then the other extreme, like patent it because all you have is maybe the possibility to license. People who are like, there's nothing there to savage, just do something else with your life. And then, there was just so much going on that it's hard, like you're really trying to listen, but then where do you go? Because I was also learning. I didn't know exactly what this was about. I would say that specifically with the side of patenting, we were even facing like huge chemical companies where the process that we were developing, they have like the alternative, but they have kept it as a trade secret. So they don't have patents for it out there. And then I wish we had had more information about how to navigate that. Like the university had their IP office and, they were great at helping us develop the IP, but, how do they advise us? Like, I didn't know what a trade secret exactly was. How do we enforce that? Do we really want to try to do something like that? You know, it was a lot of questions that we had, and it's not something that you learn in class either. So it did feel like a lot going on at the same time. But I think that what worked for us best was just to listen to everything, write it down, and then take time to like really go through the information and see what made sense for us. At the end of the day, I think that your intuition is very important. And if you don't listen to what it says and you don't go for it, then you're usually making a huge mistake, because people talk, but nobody really knows the absolute truth. You know, this is a market that everyone is trying to figure out. So there's probably no clear answer. And then you're better off just trusting what you believe in, moving forward with that.
That's great. I was actually going to ask you, like, how, when you have so many different people coming at you with advice, how you decide who to believe in or go to. So I guess if you're trusting your intuition.
Yes, I mean, we do as much research as we can, and then it still leaves you with several options. So we usually end up just following intuition at that point.
Yeah. Well, and that actually some of the patenting stuff that kind of that you were talking about supports at universities, I wanted to get into that too. But first, maybe I'll start with Josh, because you've mentioned how you have 6 patents and in the process of more. So I was just wondering so for Josh, what made you decide to patent your work? And you can give a few different, because it's going to be all different since you have 6 different ones. Yeah. And what was the process for choosing that route, basically?
Yeah, I think my thinking about patents has evolved a lot over the process of getting patents and review and redrafting claims and things like that. For those who haven't patented something and who would like to, I highly recommend that you go through the process. You know, there's a lot of learning that you can do through it. There's a great book called Patent It Yourself that will teach you a lot of what you need to know. I think my thinking now, having learned a little bit about the process, is that patenting does 2 things for you. One is it protects your ideas, but it doesn't really let you build them. But the other thing is it lets you share ideas, right? A patent is a fence that you put around a piece of property that can keep other people out. It doesn't necessarily give you the rights to what's up in the air or the rights of what's underground there. You can't necessarily go drilling for oil if someone owns the mineral rights to that piece of property. But what patenting can do is it can inspire invention and innovation. And my first patent that I submitted, it was a provisional application for patent, never turned into a full issue. I did that because I wanted to build a business around it. And I thought that a patent would help me attract investors and grow the company and give me something that I can put into a portfolio. And over time, I've begun to realize that patenting is a way to establish your first mover advantage, but also to help other people innovate on the ideas that you've created and ensuring that you benefit from the foundation that you laid for them. So that's kind of how I think about it now. A patent is a way to stake your claim, prove you've done something great, have other people help you along the way, and make sure that they don't cut you out of the picture. And in that sense, really, patenting lets you kickstart a new discipline without fear that someone will take it away from you. I know we have a lot of startup founders here, a lot of people who would like to start companies, and you're always worried that someone is going to work around your IP or find some better way of doing something. But a patent actually lets you build a strong platform that other people can kind of use as scaffolding to get their own ideas out the door. I don't know if that completely answered the question, but how I think about patents and engaging with them is constantly evolving, as it is for, I think, anyone who has gone through or is going through or will go through that process.
No, that's great. And did you have, what supported you through the process too initially? Like, was it through MIT or?
The first patent that I did, I was in high school, and it was a provisional application for patent. And the great thing about a provisional application for patent in particular is you don't need a lawyer for it because there are no claims in it. All it does is it secures a priority date for you. And if you've written a paper about something and your paper is detailed enough, the claims are within it. So you can send that in and lock in your priority date. So that I did, like I said, because I wanted to start a company and use that IP as the basis for it. But then once I came to MIT, I got more and more involved with the TLO, the Technology Licensing Office, who helps to figure out what is patentable here, what is unique, useful, and non-obvious, which are the 3 elements that make a patent patentable and worthwhile to someone who might want to license it or build upon it. And since that time, I've gone on to work with the TLO on multiple disclosures and Michigan State University as well. And those offices are a wonderful resource, whether you're doing it for the first time or the 10th time, and telling you what's novel, what's the value, what's out there, and is this something worth doing? But the advice I'll give to people who are working with the licensing office is be an advocate for yourself, because patent offices within a university, they have their own budgets, they have their own profit and loss statements that they need to manage, and it's far easier to say no than yes. So if you are passionate about your idea and they say, no, we don't want to patent it, come back with more evidence, push it over the line. That's one of the things that I wish that I did more earlier in my inventing career, to advocate for myself in those rooms.
Great. That's really helpful to hear. And I think good advice for a lot of people in the audience. Of the other panelists, or in terms of your schools, were there any supports, like patenting support, that you wish you could have had, or that was really good? Like Catherine, for example, at Columbia, did you have a lot of support there when you were going through the process?
Yeah, so I think Kinnes's patent journey is pretty interesting. At this point, we have 7 patents and we have 12 in the pipeline. So as a technology company, as Josh was saying earlier, patenting the technology that you base the company around is crucial. So when Jason, Kevin, and I first started working on this project at Columbia, one of the first things we knew was that we had valuable IP here. It wasn't generated with money from Columbia. We didn't do it in a lab. We didn't do it under a PI. Literally, Jason, Kevin, and I just bought stuff with our own money, and we're doing it in our dorm rooms. And we were initially really, really hesitant about engaging with Columbia literally in any way, because we wanted to make sure that we could retain the IP. And what ultimately ended up happening was we wanted to apply for this grant from the USAID. They had a Fighting Ebola Grant Challenge grant. They were giving out millions of dollars, and we thought this was going to be a really good opportunity for us. We applied first without Columbia. We didn't get it, just as 3 random undergrads. And then Columbia intervened and was like, hey, we know you really don't trust us, but we think we need to be on this grant. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. So we rethought our strategy, and we had Columbia on the grant. I remember I was pretty upset when I was writing the grant, because I had to name the scientists who would be doing the research. And I was naming like the dean of the engineering school and a couple other heads of departments. And those people had really done none of the work necessary to get the product across the finish line. And, writing their names down as opposed to writing my own name made me feel, kind of upset. But we ended up getting the grant. So I think that really goes to show, like, you need to play the game the way the game is meant to be played. Otherwise, you're not even going to move forward at all. So we were really reticent to get involved with Columbia due to our fears around IP, but ultimately getting involved helped us. However, before the grant started, we made sure that we filed a provisional on all the IP that we expected to generate under that grant, so that Columbia would not have any claim to that IP. And so I think we were really fortunate, and I think Columbia was truly generous in not fighting us for our IP. We were actually really good friends with the dean of engineering there, and she was a big advocate for us. And so again, I really echo what Josh is saying. You need to advocate for yourself. Sure, this university is going to have good resources for you, but at the end of the day, no one's fighting for you except for yourself. The university is fighting for the university. And so I remember, like, the OPT office got involved. They called us. They're like, we need to come down right now. We think we own this technology, so we're actually going to license it back to you for you to start a company. And all of us, me and my 2 co-founders were like, no, I don't want to start. I'm not going to pay for my own invention to use it, right? And it was through the relationship that we formed with the dean and with the other professors that we were able to push back and make sure that, none of our IP was going to be taken by the university. And we actually set a good precedent at Columbia, because Columbia now, all of those hackathons that they have, all the IP is also allowed to go back to students. So I think that's really generous, because during my experience as a student founder, I participated in programs like VentureWell, E-Team, which I highly recommend for technical co-founders who want to learn a little bit about business. It's fun, it's an easy application, and you learn about, like, making a business plan, how to patent stuff. And I remember when we got the VentureWell grant, I met student teams who had technologies from other universities, and their universities owned like 50% to 80% of the technology. And a lot of those teams didn't do anything after, winning these awards because there was really no actual reason to, since the technology was owned by the university. So I think, just obviously take advantage of the resources that are there, but remember also that, you are trying to protect your own IP and advocate for yourself. And I think the last thing that I would say on this is when we first filed our first original, Jason found a family friend. We did it for a steep discount, and that's how we filed our first patents. Bad idea, because 4 years later, we got a much better patent attorney, realized we had to fix a lot of our patents. If your patents are complicated and build on top of each other, you have families of patents. And so a mistake that you make early on can have retroactive, very long and very expensive effects later on in the future. So if you have money, if you have some money to spend it on a good patent lawyer, get your ducks in a row, set a good foundation. Don't try and save money on your patents because that stuff is complicated. Someone's job for a reason.
Great. I think that's really good advice. I definitely would not know that going myself. But and actually, so Daniela or Matthew, did you have? I was just curious, actually, if anyone did not have support from their university, if they went a different route, and if not, that's okay. But
with the technology that we got the award for, we didn't do anything with the university. So we went through an accelerator program and then worked with our lawyer and law firm that helped us set up all of our business documents and everything else. So I went the other route. Also would agree, do not try to cut costs on legal. That is the one area where you're paying for value because it can really hurt you in the back end if you mess it up.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say that in my case, it was also like I saw a lot of the things that have been mentioned. Like when I was in the PhD, we were developing IP, and then all of that belonged to the university, and it was very, very nice to work with the IP department at the school because they were great, and it always felt like we were on the same team. But then when there was a time to get a company out, it was a spin-off, then it feels like you're dealing with the same people, but you're in different teams at different times of the day. It was like during the morning, the lawyers were on our team trying to get the patent as strong and as good as we could. But then in the afternoon, when we had to negotiate with them the terms for a license for the company, then it just felt, like it felt like we were on different teams. They weren't mean or anything, but you suddenly realize that, what Josh said, like you have to advocate for yourself because there is no one else. In our case, it turned out being something like the company had some pivots, so we ended up not meeting the IP, and then we didn't get the license from NYU. But I do think that something that would have been extremely helpful is if there had been kind of like maybe some set agreements that already existed. I don't know if it's at NYU, like maybe we're one of the first spin-offs. I'm not honestly sure, but it just felt like we had to talk to other people from other schools, and then they had different terms, and then we kept coming back and saying like, oh, but I think we can do this, and then they were like, no, that's never done, or we're like, is it never done? Like nobody knew. So I think that maybe if there were maybe some roadmap that you could expect, and you could know that if you develop inventions within a school, this is what happens, these are the terms, and this is how it works for a spin-off company, I think that would have been extremely helpful for us, and I hope that gets put into place. We did recommend that, so I hope they're doing something about that.
Okay, good. No, that's great. These are all really helpful tips to hear from all of you. I think I'm just going to shift it a little to primarily just to Catherine and Matthew. Catherine, I know you touched on this a little bit before, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about forming teams. So Catherine, if you could just start, and I know you said your team was so supportive to you, but could you just describe how exactly you formed your team and decided to work together, and like how did you determine those roles and responsibilities that you shifted up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I first came to Columbia, two of the first people that I met at school were Jason and Kevin. When I first met them, I did not think I was going to be their friends and see them ever again. But as life would have it, they have been intertwined in my life ever since. So keep an open mind about who you meet. You never know. Kevin and Jason were also in the same fraternity. We had a lot of classes together. And Jason and I were also dating. So it kind of made sense. We were all interested in the same sector. And when the hackathon at Columbia was presented, I was the one that encouraged Jason to go because it was his 21st birthday. He actually actually didn't want to go. He wanted to go out and get drunk, obviously. But I forced him to go. And after he went, he came back and found me and Kevin and was just so excited about the problem. And he pulled us onto it immediately. And I think ever since then, we've been kind of a functioning unit of 3 people. And I would say that I think it's really hard to mediate team dynamics. And I think when you start a team, it's really important to remember that that's a relationship that you have to put effort in. You cannot leave it on the side. You're going to have to put in effort with every single person on your team to make sure that communication is good. I would also highly, highly recommend signing a founder's agreement as soon as possible, because then you can put down all the expectations on the table. So if someone's not pulling their weight, or someone's not doing a good job, or someone isn't abiding by the terms and standards that you all agree to, you have in writing that they'll no longer be on the team, they won't be associated with the project, and that'll just make your life so much easier, because conflict is inevitable. And so the sooner you can get that stuff down on written down, the sooner you can get that signed, the better for every single member of the team. And this isn't saying like, don't trust your friends, or like, don't trust your significant other or anyone that you start a team with, but it's more just understanding that business is hard. And the way that businesses succeed is if they're not personal. So if removing someone from a team ensures that the business would do better, more product would be sold, having an agreement really helps make that difficult conversation a lot less personal. The second thing that I would like to say is that it's really important to be able to be honest with the people that you work with. You should surround yourself with people that you think can actively challenge you and you can actively challenge. You do not want to surround yourself with yes men, and you do not want to surround you, and you yourself don't want to be a stubborn person that doesn't listen to other people. I think what I often use as an indicator is if someone says something that I feel uncomfortable about, like I feel defensive about, I immediately think to myself, the reason why I feel uncomfortable or defensive about this is there must be some kernel of truth in communication that's coming for me. So let me figure out what that is. And I've spoken with a lot of student teams, and I've seen student teams like fall apart literally in front of my eyes during a competition. Like I watched 2 team members go from being like best friends for years to one of them was sleeping in the bathtub and the other one was sleeping in the bed, and they weren't talking to each other anymore. And no one knew how the pitch was going to go because they weren't talking to each other anymore. And so I think the more you can avoid that level of drama and try and be professional with each other, even if you're friends, the better. And I think I have one last thing to add to this is, Jason and I, again, as I said, we started this company when we were dating. Now we're married. So, it's been very difficult to start a company with a significant other. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I would say that if you do start one, try and keep business and personal life as separate as possible. That's good for your friendship. That's good for any relationship. So when you're interacting at work, you're interacting at work. And when you're acting at home or for fun, you're doing that. But try not to conflate the two, and also try and remember the value that your friends or your co-founders bring to your life that are outside of the company. Because I think, starting to make money, making business decisions can really tear friendships apart. And for me and my 2 other co-founders, from day one, our MO has been friends first and then business partners second. And so, anytime there's a hurt feeling, we made sure to talk about it. Anytime someone feels like something's awkward, we talk about it. So a lot of work and a lot of communication, and get that stuff down in writing. That would be my advice.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And Matthew, did you have a similar with you and Abe starting as friends first, or is it more of a business partner?
We were friends for a couple of years first, and when we got started, we really weren't sure. I really wasn't sure how well he would fit into it. I wasn't sure how well another couple of individuals were going to fit into it. We had to go through we went through a university incubator kind of thing, and they wanted multiple team members. And so when we went in, we really went in with the idea of, I know I'm asking you guys to come in on this with me, but we're going to wait until the end of the program to decide anything around equity or any of that at this point. I wanted to figure out how that would gel. When we went into it, 2 of the 4 are no longer with us. And for one reason, one guy just wasn't a good fit. And then the other guy, he actually said, I want out because this is just too fast for me. And so before you even get in and before you even hop into a startup or world or an invention world, it might not be a good culture fit, that world, for somebody. And most students, you've never been in that environment before, so you don't quite yet know if that's what's right for you. And so I like the idea of having the document on the front end, operating terms of agreement of what we're going to do before we even have an official business, because that is going to help with clarity. But it's often been said that finding a business partner is like marriage without the sex. So I would agree 110%. You are going to be in that relationship for quite a while. It's also been recommended that it's not a 50-50 split. If there is no one person in complete control of the situation, then there's sometimes some frustration and tension there. So you can get a lot of different opinions on that. But when we built a team and we started to grow a bit, we found our third co-founder that we brought in to help us with the technology side. And we started with a vesting schedule with that individual. We wanted to give them a portion of the business. And if milestones were not met, that would actually be a deteriorating vesting. So he automatically got X%. And if we didn't hit milestones, they could go away. And the reason we went that route is there actually is it's cheaper in regards to legal documents to go that direction. But when we did that, it was actually really helpful because we found out that this person was very good at getting things started, but not very good at getting things to the commercial level. And so we didn't shorthand ourselves on equity because he did get compensated for what he was able to help with. And then we went and raised a seed round, hired individuals who could take what he started and then bring that to the commercial level. And that equity that we did recapture from the vesting side actually is what we used for stock options to bring on more experienced engineers. With that said, I think there's something to be said for hiring individuals to your team as well. When we went out initially, it was really hard to find good engineering talent. And we were looking for experienced individuals in their 40s, maybe upper 30s, even their 50s. And we unintentionally put forward this MO of come work for a startup. It's going to be a ton of fun and we're going to bust our ass. And we had a lot of people. Yeah, it'd be fun to work in a startup. And we had all three people we hired eventually not be a great long-term fit. And we realized very quickly that we should have been saying, come work with Swine Tech. We're going to bust our ass and we're going to have fun time doing it. Those are two very different statements and will attract very different people. We wanted to get a lot done. We wanted to work really hard and we wanted people to have fun doing it. We didn't just want to come here, have fun, and maybe get some work done. There's a lot of individuals out there who see startups as something that can be fun, something different. And really in a startup or when you're bringing an invention to a commercial level, you need people who want to go out there and just accomplish the vision, work really hard and do great things, change the world and make fun of that time that they're doing that. And I think just managing what you are saying to people as you're bringing them onto the team and being very clear and honest is incredibly important, because if you're not, it's going to end up not working out if you're really not being transparent. So I would say that's a very important thing to think about is what do you want in a team? What is that culture going to look like? And what is your expectations of the other person? And don't hide it. Just be straightforward. This is what I expect of you. And it's going to be that way with every hire you make as you grow your team.
Great. Thanks so much. That's really helpful. I think I just want to leave, just in the interest of time, I want to leave enough time for some questions from the audience. But just to close things out, I know all four of you have given some great advice throughout this panel discussion. It's been really appreciated. But I want to ask each one of you, if you could limit it to a sentence or two, what's your biggest piece of advice that you could give to the audience today? So I'll start with Josh, please.
Yeah, constantly be getting your hands dirty, build your library of knowledge, learn to identify real and pressing problems, and think about the world like an engineer and an entrepreneur at the same time.
Great, thank you. Very succinct and good. Daniela, how about you next?
I would say find a balance between being overconfident and underconfident in your ideas. If you are underconfident, you'll never see the value in what you're doing and you won't fight for it. But if you're overconfident, then you're never going to put enough work to actually get it better and better every day. There's always something to learn. There's always a way to make it better.
Good, thank you. Catherine, we'll go with you next, please.
So my advice would be always be talking to your end users, always be testing with your end users. If you're afraid to do something, go do it. Don't not do it. try and bring your own personal values to whatever company you build. Being a nice person, caring about certain things does bring a lot of value to a company and a team. And then lastly, even though I hate networking, and maybe some people on this call hate networking, if you want to be a startup founder, networking is so important. So practice now, get used to feeling awkward, get used to shaking people's hands, introducing yourself.
Well, good thing we're going into networking breakouts soon, so we can practice. And Matthew, if you could just close it out, please.
Understand your problem like your life depends on it before you go and build a solution.
Great, thank you. So now, no, thanks so much for all of you for answering all those questions. It's been really helpful to hear these different perspectives. I wanted to open it up to the audience before we go into our networking breakouts. So you can either, I'll just make sure I can see all of you. If you want to raise your hand, I can call on you and you can unmute yourselves, or feel free to put questions in the chat if there's any questions from the audience. And it can be for any of the panelists too, or all of them.
This counts as networking.
Yep, it does. Okay, it looks like Mira has a question. If you want to go ahead, Mira.
Oh, I was just clapping, but
Oh, sorry, no, it's not a raise your hand. I missed it. All right, Hilary.
I'll raise my hand and ask a question. Hi, I'm Hilary Johnson. I'm the EDIT winner this year, and I've worked on building a centrifugal pump. And as I'm kind of looking at what my next steps are, there's a company that's really interested in licensing my technology, but I've also had some people encourage me to go and build it myself. And so I'd be curious about advice on facing that trade-off. Like, should I license it and then go and work for that company, or should I think about starting on my own?
So what is your goal? What is the end goal? I'd say if your end goal is to what is your end goal, and how might the additional resources from the company that's licensing your technology help you accomplish your goal, or does that help you accomplish your goal? If you're wanting to do something, just figure out if they help you do it faster and bigger and better. And if that's the case, and that's your end goal, then that might be the right option. But if it doesn't, then maybe it's not.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I would also just jump on that and say that we've been approached probably 1 billion times to do licensing deals. And in the very beginning, we would be super excited. We're like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing for me of income. I don't have to do anything. But I think like with a lot of deals, which what I have learned, whether you're raising a round or someone's trying to buy you or you're trying to get something licensed, those deals take a long time to pan out. And sometimes the words will sound good, everything will sound good, and in the last minute, it doesn't. And so I'm the kind of person that if I want to do a deal with someone, we make sure that we really, really like and respect the team. Because I definitely think, in the beginning, we were kind of like letting any partner pitch a license to us. And after a longer period of time, we might realize we didn't want to work with them. But I think the most important thing you should do is just start doing your due diligence. If you can go meet them, you can go check out their offices, like spend a couple days there, I think people are often really good at portraying the positive side of something without necessarily showing you the reality or any of the negatives. So if you don't see any negatives or you feel like you're only seeing positives, that's also kind of a red flag that maybe something is not being conveyed honestly with you. So I think it depends a lot on the partner, and it's really dependent on the partner. So if you like the partner, I would say go for it. Starting a company is really hard. And, I think if anyone wants to start a company, just remember that you're going to have to work a lot harder than you probably would have worked if you had just gotten a regular job. So, have that mentality going in so you expect all the hard work that's going to come.
And I'm cognizant we have other questions, but I just want to throw out my big regret in my time as a student was not taking institutional capital and not getting in over my head earlier. There's a time and a place for risk in your life, and in many respects, college or right after college is the time to do it. People who have good ideas have a lot of good ideas, and this will not be your only good idea. You will go on to start other companies if you want to. You'll have other people who want to license your work. If it sounds fun to you, then, do it, right? But if it doesn't sound fun, then don't do it. There's no time to waste doing things that don't make you happy.
Yeah, it's very easy to not know what you're missing out on when you're a student. When you graduate, you don't know what it's like to have $100,000 salary, or to even have a $60,000 salary, or have any salary at all. So like graduating from sleeping on a bed in a crappy apartment to an actual house, like those are things that you do not know what you're missing out on. And they actually say that the greatest danger to somebody who's thinking about being an entrepreneur or bringing a product to commercialization is actually applying for a job. Seeing the benefits, seeing what your life could be like, because it's enticing sometimes. And as long as you don't expose yourself to that, it's a lot easier to stay away and live and just maintain your quality of life that you have today. So yes, graduating from college, great time.
I was just saying it's true for people going into academia as well. Never apply for a job.
Yeah, I worked in industry and then came back and did a PhD. Why did I do that? I don't know. But I've loved it.
So no, thanks. Let's just want to go to the other people with questions. Kyle, if you want to start.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you to all the panelists for being on today. This was really helpful. This might be more of a networking question that I should ask in the group, but my company is called Ecotune Renewables. We turn food waste into electricity, so renewable biogas, and nutrient-dense liquid plant fertilizer. And so we're doing a lot of technology working with anaerobic digestion. And being that you all have a wide range in background, I'm more curious if you know of anyone who is looking to be a CTO, because our recent CTO, he's moving on to going back to school, getting a little bit more education, and possibly coming back. So I'm curious if you know anybody in machine learning, anybody who's curious about working with greenhouses, anaerobic digestion, and other green energy sectors.
I might know someone, and we can follow up offline, master's student at MSU who seems to fit the bill.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, great. Mira, do you want to go next?
Sure. My question was going to be like, Daniela touched on like not being overconfident or underconfident. So I guess I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on like knowing your worth when you're coming into negotiations with a partnership, or, and also the second part of this question is also with partnerships. How do y'all think about doing diligence and figuring out third party, what the other people think of the partner that you're going into? Do you do like cold emails? Do you reach out to your network? Things like that.
Hey, Mira. So on the balance between being overconfident and underconfident, I think it has to do with how you're going to come across with people, right? Like, at least in my experience, what I have found is that if I come across too strong, then they're just going to think that I'm overconfident. I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm saying things that don't make any sense. So what has worked for me is that, I start kind of like low, so that they have their low expectations because they think that we're just two girls who know nothing. But then they're going to start asking questions, kind of like halfway hoping that you won't know the answer, or assuming that you don't know the answer. And then when you start answering and you start showing your value and everything that you know, then that comes up immediately. And then, you kind of like showed how confident you are in your thing without coming in like too defensive from the beginning. So that kind of balance has really, really helped us. And it allows us to remember that, like even as the conversation comes, sometimes you'll realize that they have questions that you have actually not thought of. So if you had been overconfident from the beginning, then you look like you were unprepared. Instead, by building up to it, then you can show how much you know. And then you can be like, well, this is the limit of what we know so far. The rest of it we're figuring out, but we will get there. So I feel like that kind of approach really helps. And I'm sure that it will work out for you, Gray.
Yeah, passion and conviction, not arrogance, right? I'm excited and I know what I'm doing is really great, versus I know this and I know you don't. And so it kind of comes off differently based on how you do explain yourself when you are talking. But yeah, I'd say passion and conviction is way up there. And just be quick to listen.
And I'll say something else. Never lie. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen in people, like people pretending that they know things that they don't. It always comes back at you. People will find out. And I have actually found that there's money everywhere. you're going to find investors. What matters is getting the right kind of investor behind you. And the only way they'll support you is if they truly know who you are and what you have. So being honest has actually worked out really well for us. It gets the right people in our team.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes the myth around the founder that they're supposed to sell a vision that's beyond the vision of the actual company. I do not think that's a good idea because that bubble gets popped really quickly. My advice about the confidence thing is I really liked what Daniela said, and I was going to say something similar. By having all the answers to their questions, that's how you show them that you're confident. And I've had investors specifically in the past even say like, wow, this team was so prepared, like even though they were young, because they had answers to all our questions. So don't kid yourself when you're putting together a presentation. Try and go through it as if you're seeing it for the very first time yourself as well, and try and poke holes in your own arguments. I also think that there's kind of a burden for women in showing confidence, because you show too much confidence, people think badly of you. You don't show enough confidence, people think badly of you. In between, people think badly of you. So I also think, wherever you feel the most comfortable is where you should exist. Don't let what anyone else tell you. So like if you're naturally a more introverted person, that's fine. If you're naturally a more extroverted person, that's fine. But I just think that there's so much pressure on women to present themselves confidently in a way that doesn't make them a B word. And I just think that pressure, like all that amount of time you spend worrying about that, no man is worrying about that. They're thinking about other much more productive stuff. So don't fool your head with that kind of nonsense. Use your brain energy for more important things. And then I'd also say in terms of the partnership thing, always do your due diligence. What I like to do is just go on LinkedIn and see who are all my possible connections. And then I will arrange a call with literally every single one of those people and be like, what do you think of this VC fund? And then if it's a VC fund, then I say, can you give me a list of 5 companies you've worked with before that I can talk to? And if people say no, that is automatically a red flag if they don't have references. So not only should you ask them for references, but you should hunt through your own network, your co-founders' networks, anyone your mom's network, if she knows anyone third degree, and call those people and start talking to those people and find out the truth there. Because again, people love to obfuscate things behind documents and stuff. And the only way you can really figure out what's going on is by talking to someone. So really recommend that.
Thank you. So I think I just want to leave enough time for the breakouts too, but why don't we just go with the last 2 questions first, either Ben or Zane, and then Greg after that, and then we'll put you into the breakouts. So go ahead.
All right, hi guys, I'm Zane, this is Ben. We're the undergrad Eat It winners this year. Yes, first of all, thanks everyone for coming. It's super awesome. I just had a quick question about kind of the balance of work as you go later on in the process. So, when it started out, we were very focused on the engineering side, getting our product ready and just having something that we could prototype and show to people. But as we go further on along the process, it's a lot more of this of networking, pitching, meeting with people, and we don't have as much time to focus on the engineering side. And I'm spending a lot more time trying to learn this business side. And so I'm kind of curious as to what your guys' strategy was to find the balance between the technical and the less technical side.
So as a founder, a lot of your 3 key things you need to focus about is having a good vision, a good team, and resources. And so when you're managing your time, if it's networking, if it's engineering, what is getting you closer to revenue or to investment? Which one matters most? Figuring out what those milestones are that help you get to the next step will help you better identify where you need to be focusing your time, because it is very difficult. There are so many things moving around. And I feel as though one thing I've struggled with is that as a CEO and head of sales and person involved in marketing, am I trying to get traction for investment? Am I trying to grab the most revenue and a higher profit? Is my marketing towards sales, it just becomes a blur sometimes, because your core goal might vary considerably day to day, and you really can't handle having that instability on a day-to-day basis. So finding a way to create stability around what matters month to month or quarter to quarter or milestone to milestone is something worth focusing on, because it'll never stop. It'll constantly be a problem or a challenge that you're going to have to figure out. My opinion, my experience.
I will also say when you have, like the business and the tech, you're completely right. Like depending on where you are as you move forward, sometimes you're going to have more needs, on one side or the other, and you're going to have to focus a little bit more. But don't ever, doesn't matter where you are, don't ever let that make you like leave one of the two sides behind. Because, you constantly, doesn't matter if you need a product quickly, you can't stop talking to customers, because if you stop, then you're likely going to miss important information that is going to inform how you develop your product. And if you only focus on the business side, you're likely going to like fall behind incorporating all of the knowledge that you have on how you adapt in your technology. I used to kind of have the feeling that, you have a very clear set goal of what the technology should be. And then I always felt kind of like when I get there, I'm done or kind of done. It's a lie. You're never done, because there's always something else that you learn, and then a new feature, a new thing, a new idea. So it never ends. And I would just make sure that you remember both sides have to pull. If they don't pull, then something's missing.
I think what I would say is divide and conquer. I think what we learned on earlier at Kinnos was that some of us like doing some things and other of us like doing other things. It's impossible for you both to work equally on the two separate parts of the company. So for example, at Kinnos, we divided technology up to me and Kevin, and then Jason took care of the business side of things. And that's what he really focused on. And I think when we were all kind of focusing on technology and business, that's when things were falling through the cracks. That was probably during our senior year of college, and that's when we were like applying to a lot of competitions and trying to get a lot of non-dilutive funding. And while that was really cool, and I'm really glad we did do all those competitions to meet all these people, I do think, and Jason and I have talked about this a lot, that was probably one of our biggest mistakes at the time, that we were focused so much on the technology in the competition circuit, but we were not focused on building our business, understanding the market, understanding our customer, building a value proposition, et cetera. And I think all those parts of a company are super, super important, especially if your company is already technically inclined. Like my team was 3 technical co-founders trying to go in. None of us had any idea of business. And while, maybe your comfort zone is, okay, let's try and do as much technology as possible and do as little business as possible, that is not going to be the best outcome for you. So I would say whoever likes it better, if one of you could focus on it, and also just understand that I think this is what Jason has told me. So I'm not, ragging on people who are CEOs or people who do business, but Jason told me, that like, if you have the capacity to learn some of these crazy technical skills, you have the capacity to learn how to run the business side of your company. He said it was much easier doing that than inventing Highlight. So I do think, having an open mind in realizing that building a company isn't just going to be about the technology. There are so many more incredible things you're going to be able to learn, and being open-minded in that I might have to learn some stuff that I don't think is that cool, or I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I had to do sales for a long time too for Kinnos. And just until last year did I finally get to like retreat back to the lab and stop having to talk to people. But like up until last year, I was doing sales calls, and it was the worst. Like before every sales call, I'm literally in the car just like, oh my God, I'm in like so much emotional and mental pain. You just got to do it, because there's no one else to do it. And then last thing I would say is, I might be projecting here, but I know that scientists love to keep working until they get their product or their technology perfect. And perfect doesn't exist. Do not let great be the enemy of good. I wanted to keep working on technology for much longer, but we already had results back from our early users that they liked it enough. And so we've pushed out a product that's launched that maybe I think honestly can be improved another 30%. Much more extensive work can be done. But people are buying it, it's being used. So don't stand in your own way. If your technology, get it being used as possible, collect the feedback. And if people are ready to use it, even if you think, a Gen 2 would be really cool, keep working on that, but get your product.
Thanks, Catherine. So let me just, let's close it out with Greg's last question. And then, but this essentially has been a good networking experience for all of this session, but then we'll leave a little time for breakouts. So yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. Janelle, I'm so grateful for the panelists. So I'm a 5th year MD PhD student who was also a finalist in the Curate competition this year. And I've co-founded 2 different diagnostic companies. One was in undergrad. It was a device that measures lung function. And fortunately, that company is still ongoing and just closed a $1 million seed round earlier this year. and I co-founded a second company during my PhD on cancer diagnostics and liquid biopsies. In my training track, it's about 8 years to complete the MD PhD program, and then there's residency fellowship. And I'm interested in those who have tried to strike the balance of trying to successfully complete their PhD while simultaneously running a company, how you have done it well. I am definitely open to any tips and tricks that you have. I think that the second question that I have is what has it been like trying to hire people that are older and more experienced than you once you have a company off the ground? And how did you do those interviews? What kind of experiences did you learn from? I know it's a lot, but I would appreciate any feedback.
I'm happy to take a quick crack at this one. And to the second question first, how do you deal with people who are older than you and trying to sell yourself as the person who has the answer? I once had a student come in to my office asking if they could enroll in a class that I was teaching. And I opened up the door, I introduced myself, and he sat down. We just sat there in silence for a couple minutes and then said, "When's the professor going to be here?" And I think you need to project that air of confidence and you need to own it. I mean, you're the expert in this domain. The reality is people appreciate good work. People appreciate good output, and it doesn't matter who does it. And if you're working with people who judge you based on your age or any other factor, you don't want to work with them. So own it, stand tall, and claim that. In terms of how do you balance PhD and startup and the million other things that you have going on, people who have effective work habits learn how to make one thing work for multiple different opportunities. Right. And in terms of my own academic and startup journey, I got journal papers at the same time that I got patents about the same technology that I was pitching to VCs. And if you have the right type of working group, or if you have the right type of relationship with your advisor, or you're willing to just accept that not everything is perfect all the time, you can do one thing a little bit better than it would take to get one particular result and apply it 10 different ways. Right. And I think that that's what a lot of people who are innovators and serial and parallel entrepreneurs have in common, which is they find the thread connecting things. And as a PhD student, MD PhD, you think about writing that dissertation, it's very daunting, but your job in writing a dissertation is to find the thread connecting all the weird things that you've done for the past 5, 8, 10 years, and the thing that makes it work uniquely well in your brain. Right. So if you can find the thread that lets you write a dissertation, you can also find the thread that ties your dissertation to what an investor wants, what a customer needs, and how you change the world.
Yeah, I wish I would have gone back and done a PhD, because at the end of it, I realized I'm one of the experts on animal behavior in a certain setting. And I already did all the work. I did it all. I wrote all the papers. I did everything but the little sliver that makes it a PhD. And so yeah, I think a lot of what you're saying is so true from what I've seen from colleagues as well, is that there's so much that transfers from one to the other. Take it as a blessing. It is hard to manage, but it's going to help a lot in the long run.
Yeah, I will also say, remember that a PhD can actually also be really good for the company in terms of you're getting a salary. So you don't need to take that money from the company at first. In my case, I think something that was really helpful is that, we kept my co-founder had already graduated from undergrad, but I was doing the PhD. And then we decided when was the right time for me to graduate, so that, the right time for the company, like when do we have the funding, when have we leveraged all the resources and everything that the university gave us to be able to develop that technology up to that point where I could transition. And if you think about it, I think the only way we were able to do it kind of like such a smooth transition was because I knew that was the plan. So I also kind of like planned my thesis around that. That your time is very valuable. So, during a PhD, you can get so many ideas and so many projects to start and so many new things to try. Like, make sure that you know exactly how many chapters, how many papers you need to be able to defend. And then make sure that you don't lose track of that. You have all your work that you're going to be doing for the company, but make sure that in your head, you know exactly how long it's going to take you to be able to get everything and defend your thesis, so that if the company needs you, you can take that step and you can go out to the next thing and then just work full time for the company. I will say that. And then the other thing that I will say on your question about hiring people who might be, that happened to me. We hired someone who had already a PhD and they were working under my supervision when I was still doing my PhD. And it was pretty complex. I think that what I learned and I'm using now is just that you have to be very straightforward from the beginning. Like, don't let things, like show them exactly like these are the outcomes. This is what a successful work from you would look like. This is what I need to see from you. And this is how you report to me. We say that from the moment when we're interviewing them, so that if you see that they don't react to that well, if there is a problem, then you can just stay away from that person, because just by making that clear, you will figure out who's willing to work with you and who you can work with.
Thanks, Daniela. So
Thank you so much.
I just, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks. Thank you to all. I just want to leave enough time for a little bit of smaller networking breakouts. We'll still end this around 5 Eastern, but this has been a really valuable conversation. I think it's been helpful to everyone. So I appreciate all of the panelists' time and everyone else asking these questions.